So being a spiritual seeker is worthy and will alter your life. But entries to that dimension are many, confusing, and none of them actually lead anywhere. Your job is to learn how to process the information and experiences appropriately. The path to spiritual understanding can actually take you exactly opposite to where you think you should be going, or drop you in an unknown and gorgeously compelling but useless place. The trick is not to get distracted. Observe, but keep your focus on your heart. And there are many barkers, salespeople, and shiny, pretty things that you will be attracted to. I was. Some of it was time wasting, and all of it taught me the difference between the true and the false. I'd like you to go about seeking smarter than me. So I'm going to talk with you about some of the things I have learned. And everyone will have different opinions and experiences. I can only speak of my own dead ends, failures, and unintended successes. For those of you interested to know where I ended up, I now teach Sufism under the guidance of my Shaykh. And if you want to know more about my path, continue along with these videos, or you can read my book, Getting Out of the Way, Living Sufism, on Amazon and iBooks. Now, I'm going to be referring to the heart, and when I do, it's in a spiritual context. And when I speak of the heart, I'm not talking about an idea, a concept, a mental construct. I'm talking about the actual feeling, the presence of your heart, viscerally, physically, as well as spiritually. And if you're a seeker for spiritual understanding, you're going to need a toolkit to balance, weigh, and assess the information. In your research, you will come across outrageous claims, promises, paradoxical statements, conspiracy theories, offers of gifts of powers, and some will say it will all be better in the next world, or worse, I have the truth. So let's power up our intelligences and see if we can find a healthy way of setting up some signposts for mapping spiritual paths. First, it should accord with science, and if not provable through observation and experimentation, then at least have the probability of testing at some point. For example, the concept of creation. Science has proven through DNA and fossil evidence that this world was created approximately 4.5 billion years ago. This dating is based on evidence from radiometric age dating of meteorite material, and is consistent with the radiometric ages of the oldest known terrestrial and lunar samples. There are certainly holes in the timeline, but even a rudimentary understanding of life must include dinosaurs and explain the existence of trilobites and shells found on mountaintops. Denial of obvious reality indicates a serious lapse in intelligence and reasoning. Now, if a holy book says something not physically and verifiably true, perhaps it is true in a different metaphorical sense, requiring a thought and reflective process called thinking. To be an effective spiritual seeker, one must learn how to ask the right questions. So let's talk about how to ask good questions. There are questions which will address and lead you towards what you're looking for, and then there are questions which will lead you in circles, spirals, make your journey more confusing. So consider this material world is a living metaphor for the spiritual world. On this side of the divide, we make a living and provide for ourselves and others using barter, favors, and money and exchanges. In the spiritual world, there is also a cost for everything. You have to decide how much you are willing to give up to go forward. And we'll talk about this later. In your initial research, asking, for example, what is the truth? That's a bad question. It's a question that's impossible to resolve at this stage in your growth. And if you keep moving forward, you will pass through various veils of understanding. And what you don't understand now may eventually become clear later. If you take a philosophy class and study Western philosophers, I did, Their questions and reasoning are so off the mark because the philosophers themselves are confused and get easily distracted by their own thinking. And when starting to seek spiritual answers, I suggest avoiding German, French, and English philosophers like Kant, Sartre, Nietzsche, Hegel. Compared to Asian and Middle Eastern thinkers, Western philosophy appears childish and ill-prepared to follow through in reference to the big picture. They seem to enjoy hearing themselves spinning little circles without evolving. Why? They make too many assumptions. They're too ignorant in some basic spiritual concepts and miss many basic points, avoiding the important and relevant questions. One's got to start simply, quietly, and allow time for reflecting and testing. I found Western philosophy a dead end. It's not been around long enough, and thus its questions and answers seem to me infantile compared with Eastern thought. Now, some Greek philosophers like Plotinus might be a better place if you're looking for Western thought, though he was probably influenced by Eastern teachings. Better questions might be, who am I? Why is there suffering? Why am I here? What is our purpose? How can I achieve fulfillment? Now, much of the wisdom of the East is now available in every language, as is the profound and practical teachings of the indigenous nations from around the world. So, as a seeker of spiritual wisdom, there are some other traps I've experienced that I'd like to share with you. Perhaps where I got lost, you will notice, and so avoid falling in. And one trap I got stuck in was believing, or at least being attracted to, charismatic gurus and teachers. And almost every faith, cult, religion, sect has them. And very often they are subtle manipulators, salespeople, who take your energy rather than caring about you. Some aware of what they do, others do it because they can and because we let them. No major spiritual path will advocate and teach you about success, sex, money, power, or self. Each of those is a trap and a dead end. If someone says they're going to make you successful or rich or loved, this is not going to end well. This also goes for channelers, palm readers, and astrologers. Remember, anything can be a trap if it distracts you from learning to know your heart. I'm not saying that you shouldn't explore. Once you begin to look for things of a spiritual nature, the whole sky will open up and you'll be amazed at all the information. And as a spiritual seeker, you're welcome to poke your fingers in as many pies, or to mix metaphors, window shop as much as you like. Taste what is out there. However, when you don't wish to waste any more time, that's when you will realize that the most important thing you can do is to learn how to listen to your heart. When you know that, then you're ready for the next phase of the journey. You'll know and appreciate that it is your heart that is your greatest asset. The next question, how do I know when it is my heart I am hearing? Well, that's when we're beginning to talk about the real work. The spiritual path is about learning how to listen to your heart, not your attachments, your desires, culture, family, religion, books, teachers, wishes, or YouTube. The ability to distinguish between the self and the heart requires a sound spiritual path. Any teaching that condones shortcuts is going to make you shit. Let's cut here. How do I know when it's my heart I am hearing? Now we're talking about the real work. Pause. Continue. The spiritual path is about learning how to listen to your heart, not your attachments, desires, culture, family, religion, books, teachers, wishes, YouTube. The ability to distinguish between self and heart requires a sound and practical spiritual path. Any teaching that advises or condones shortcuts or claims to make you rich or powerful is one I suggest you avoid. A spiritual path needs to be applicable in daily life as well as a method of attaining and maintaining a connection with the divine or sacred. Whatever you call the intelligence in this universe, that is what your heart is connected to. Awakening and opening that connection should be the ultimate goal of your life. It's what makes life fulfilling. Next discussion, I would like to speak about spiritual abuse. There are all manner of spiritual abuses: verbal, emotional, manipulative, passive-aggressive. So please send your questions and comments to my email and the comments below, and I'll try to address the ones most appropriate. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.